Hey, what's going on? This is Sports Truth, and I'm your host, Jordan Harris. So today's video, got a really good video for you today. Everybody loves lists. Everybody loves ranking things. So I ended up ranking Miami's best remaining QB options as far as the transfer portal goes. As you all know by now, Ward is not coming to the Hurricanes. He's not going to be a Hurricane next year. He's going to the NFL. So let's just put that chapter behind us and move on. As you've heard me say on this channel many times before, don't panic, plan it. So let's look at what options we have ahead of us, and then let's pick what the best option is. And I've got them ranked from 6 all the way down to number 1. And then we can discuss that in the comment section. So before we get started, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate everyone who has subscribed so far. Really appreciate the support. So let's go ahead and get into the video. We'll start off with number 6. So we got Will Howard. I almost didn't even make this. Almost didn't make this graphic because, the dude is. It looks like he's going to Ohio State. He went and he visited Miami first, and then he went to USC after that, and it looked like he was probably leaning towards USC. Out of nowhere, Ohio State comes pretty strong, and there's a lot of analysts out there who are saying that he is almost guaranteed to go Ohio State. So he's a senior, 6'5", 242. He was 61% on his passes this year as far as completion rating. 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2,600 yards, and then for rushing, he was 351 yards and 9 touchdowns. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on Will Howard because the chances of Miami landing Will Howard at this point seem to be extremely small. I personally believe if we weren't all caught up in this, I was in it too, so I can't blame the coaches, but if we weren't all caught up in the Cam Ward storm, I think Will Howard would have ended up being a Miami quarterback next year. But it is what it is. Things have happened. Can't go back and change the past, so let's just move on with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next person. Malachi Nelson from USC. He's a freshman, just finished up his freshman year. He's playing behind Caleb Williams, so of course he's not going to get any burn at all, but he's 6'3", 190. And then he only threw the ball 3 times this year, had 1 completion, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, no rushing yards to speak of. So everything with Malachi Nelson would have to be a guessing game as far as how well he would compete at the college level because he just doesn't have any numbers out there. He doesn't have any tape. All you can do is look at his high school resume and hope that it projects to a decent college or a good college football player. But does he make sense for the Hurricanes at this point? I would have to say no because first let's think of what Hurricanes are going into the transfer portal for. Going there because we're looking for a talented but experienced quarterback. We're not looking in the transfer portal because we don't have talent on the roster. We're not going there because we don't have a talented quarterback. We're going there because we don't have a quarterback that's experienced enough. So to bring in someone like Malachi Nelson as our starter at the beginning of this coming year doesn't make sense. So that's why he's ranked number 5 on this list. So let's go ahead and move on to number 4, which is Jadon. I'm going to probably mess this pronunciation up. Mava, maybe? Jadon Mava. So he was the quarterback for UNLV. Freshman, he's 6'4", 220, so he's got excellent size as a quarterback. 63% of his passes were completed, so he was 224 for 353. 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. You cannot love that touchdown to interception ratio. You want to at least be 2-1, but 3-1 is what you're really looking for. And he's not even 2-1 on that. He did throw for a bunch of yards, though. He had 3,085 yards, which is crazy. Then he ran the ball a little bit, so he had 277 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So, once again, the Hurricanes are looking for experience. This is a freshman. He did get to play the full season, though, so that helps. But with his TD to interception ratio being less than 2-1, it's not ideal. And then if you bring him in, it really would be kind of redundant based on what we already have on the roster. It's like, why would you bring in somebody who's not going to be a major step up front we have as far as talent goes, as far as stats go, as far as experience goes? It would just be redundant. So it doesn't really make sense to bring in Jadon at all. And that's part of why he didn't even make it to the top 3 of this list. So let's see who's in the top three. So we've got Kaden Salter. This is a player that everybody's been talking about over the last couple of days when he jumped into the portal. So he's from Liberty. So he's not playing against a lot of really good competition. Let's just put that out there. Sophomore, 6'1", 200 pounds, 61% completion. So he threw the ball a little bit, 177 for 290, 32 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Now that is 5-to-1 touchdown ratio. That's excellent. And he threw the ball for 28, 76 yards. Then he runs the ball a lot. So he had over 1,000 yards rushing, almost 1,100, and 12 touchdowns. So when you talk about a dual threat quarterback, he embodies that. Like, he is 100% dual threat quarterback. But my issue with Kaden Salter is that he did not play anybody. When you play for Liberty, you typically don't play against a lot of really good competition. So I'm just going to go through some of the teams that he played against this year, and you can tell me which ones sound like world beaters. So he played against UTEP, UMass, Old Dominion, Western Kentucky. It's like Jacksonville State. The abbreviation is JVST. Then he played against SHSU. I don't even know what that is. It's SHSU. I don't know what that is. So, I don't know. And then he played against Buffalo, played against Bowling Green State. The best team he played against this year, he played against two decent teams. He played against New Mexico State, which he was 20 for 25, 319 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's a good game against a decent team, at least a team that you've heard of, right? No disrespect to the other teams. But he also played against Oregon. All right, so let's go over his Oregon numbers. He was 15 for 24, 126 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So the reason why those numbers are so bad is because, for one, they got beat 45-6. All right, so if you're down 45-6, you're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and it's going to be a whole lot of wide open checkdowns. Like, whenever you're up 30-0, most of the defense that you're going to be playing is prevent defense, where you're just putting your linebackers and safeties way far back, and you're just giving free yardage here in the front, these 5 to 7 yard passes. So for him to get 15 completions and throw for 126 yards for the entire game, that's pretty scary. So he finally played against a good team. He did not perform well at all. He had less than 10 yards per completion, like way less than that. And then obviously his team was overmatched. Like, Liberty does not have nearly the amount of talent that Oregon has. So he's playing at a deficit from the beginning. So I can understand that. His teammates aren't as good as the team he's playing against. I get that. But 15 completions for 126 yards, that's rough to look at, especially when you know that the team was getting blown out the whole game. And I'm sure there were a bunch of completions that was just gimmies, like these little checkdowns that they're going to allow you to have when they're up about 30 to 40 points. So Kaden Salter, really good numbers, but when you're not playing against anybody and when you're playing against teams like SHSU, God bless them. I don't know who they are. Leave it in the comment section. Who is that? I don't know. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next person. I don't think that Kaden Salter would be an excellent I don't think he'd be an excellent player for the Hurricanes right now, even though his touchdown-interception ratio is great, and he threw for a lot of yards. I just don't know if that'd be able to relate or to translate from his conference to playing against Clemson or Florida State, something like that. I don't know if it would translate. Maybe it would, but I have my doubts there. Let's talk about number 2. Number 2 is Jadon McLoud. So Jadon McLoud almost fits exactly what the Hurricanes have been looking for. They were talking about how they probably wanted a one-and-done kind of player, somebody who's got experience. So he's from James Madison. He's a senior, 6 foot, so he's not real tall. 199 pounds. He threw 68% completions, which is really good. He was 35 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, so he's 3.5 touchdown to interception ratio, which is really nice. And he threw for a bunch of yards, 3,657 yards. And then he also uses his legs really well, so 276 yards and 8 touchdowns. I think this person almost screams what the Hurricanes have been looking for. Almost. The issue with him is the same issue that we had with the previous quarterback, though. He just didn't play anybody. He's playing for a school that's not the greatest, right? Like, when you go through the teams that he's played against, he played against Coastal Carolina. I think that's who CCU is. He played against UConn, which is probably the best competition that they had on here. Georgia State, played against Marshall. Georgia Southern, he played against USA. I don't know what that is, USA. University of Southern, I don't know, University of San Antonio? I don't know. Played against Troy. He played against Virginia, and he also played against Bucknell and Air Force. So let's talk about the team that we've all heard of, right? ACC. So Virginia, they won that game 36-35. He was 20 for 31, had 224 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0 interceptions. So he had a decent game there against Virginia. Against Marshall, I don't even think we really care about the Marshall stats too much, but he was 21 for 31, 264 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Yeah. Air Force, he was 20 for 33, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He threw for 257 in that game. So he didn't play against any world beaters either. I don't really want to call these teams cupcakes. I don't think that's right. But he just did not play against really high competition. So it's hard to value the numbers that he put up compared to people who are putting these numbers up against SEC teams or ACC teams. It's just, I think just about anybody would agree with what I'm saying on that. But like I said, everywhere else, he definitely hits every other mark. Like, he's a senior, so he's got some, he's established. He's played a bunch of games in his 4 or 5 years in school. His completion percentage is really high at 68%, almost 70% is really nice. And then his touchdown to interception ratio is really good too, 3.5 to 1. And then he also uses his legs. So if Miami was to get Jordan McLoud, I'd be pretty happy about that. I think that'd be a pretty good move. The other ones that I've named so far, I think that it would be a step backwards maybe. So let's look at who I think is number one. The number one I think is, and I know some of y'all are probably going to kill me for this, but I think the number one option right now is Ja'Curry Brown for a lot of different reasons, if you ask me. So obviously he's at Miami, redshirt freshman, 6'4", 220. His completion percentage is 64%, which is decent. It could be improved, obviously. Had a touchdown, 1 interception, 181 yards, but he uses his legs really well, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game against Rutgers. So let's talk about that game against Rutgers real quick, and then I'll talk about what starting Ja'Curry Brown next year would mean for the Hurricanes and what that would mean to fans like me and to fans like you, because it means a lot, and I want to make sure I get that in everybody's brains, what it would actually mean if they decided to start Ja'Curry Brown. All right, so the reason why I think he's the best fit is because, for one, he's already there. He seems like he obviously wants to be a Hurricane, which is a big deal, probably the biggest deal. Getting people who want to be in your organization rather than having to pay somebody and twist their arm and do all that stuff to come and join your team, it's not what you want. You want somebody who's proven to want to be there. He could have tried to stick it to the coaching staff. He could have tried to stick it to the fan base. He could have tried to stick it to a lot of people, because he didn't play hardly at all. And I know people are saying he wanted to redshirt, but you can play some games and still redshirt, obviously, right? So the fact that he did not play hardly any this year, well, he didn't play any before the bowl game, and then we get to the point where we need a quarterback because we don't have any quarterbacks except walk-ons and all, those kind of options. So for us to be in a bad situation like we were, and for him to just about bail us out and say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play, when he could have really stuck it to us and transferred after that, I do admire that like crazy. And then also the fact, I think loyalty is really important. So for him to be loyal to the university like he has been, I think he's at least earned the opportunity to be the starter at this point. Because, like I said, he had the opportunity to leave the Hurricanes, as we call it in Wichita, high and dry. He had the opportunity to do that, and he did not. So that's why I really feel like he's earned the opportunity to be taken extremely seriously and to be, honestly, the front runner for the starting position. I really think that's where he should be right now. So yeah, I know it's not the smartest thing, whether you're talking about business or you're talking about sports, to give somebody an opportunity just because they're loyal to you. I understand that, but I do operate some things a little differently than most people. And with Ja'Curry Brown showing his loyalty as much as he did, it makes me want to put him at the top of the list. So now let's talk about, we'll just close talking about what this means if Ja'Curry Brown ends up being the starter for next year. It means a whole bunch. So let me go through this stuff one by one. First, this would have to be a long-term commitment for the coaching staff. This cannot be one of those things where we put him in there, he throws a couple of interceptions, and then we yank him out and then put somebody else in there. I think this needs to be looked at as a full year of on-the-job training. That's what I think this needs to be looked at as. And that means don't hide the playbook from him. If he throws 2 or 3 interceptions, the next time we come out, please do not have this crazy conservative play calling sheet where you just throw in bubble screen left, bubble screen right, draw up the middle. Like, let's not do that. We need to have a full commitment to Ja'Curry Brown if we're going to start him, and then just let him play the full year, making mistakes and all, and just use this as an on-the-job training year, the whole year. This is going to be an on-the-job training. So what does that mean to fans like me and fans like you? The schedule is pretty cushy this coming year. It is. And it would have been really nice to have a super established, polished quarterback come in and potentially run the table. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you look at the schedule, I promise you, we had an opportunity to run the table this coming year because it was not a crazy tough schedule at all. But if we start in Ja'Curry Brown, I think our expectations have to go from 11 or 12 wins, where I was thinking if Cam Ward came to the Hurricanes, where I was like, yeah, we'd probably get 11 of these bad boys or maybe 10 of these. I think our expectations need to drop quite a bit to where we're praying for 9 wins now. If Brown, if Brown starts, we need to go from thinking we could potentially go from 11 to 12 wins to now praying that we get 9. And the floor needs to be probably 7. So 7 wins at the least, 9 wins, and this is during the regular season. I'm not talking about the bowl game. So 7 wins at the worst, 9 wins, we pray for that, okay? So, like, winning 10 games next year, nope. Going to the playoffs next year, nope. I think that needs to be thrown out the window. And then, like, us as fans, we cannot jump on this dude's back if he has a bad first half, if he looks terrible in the second half and we barely win the game. Like, we cannot do that. This needs to be one of those situations, like I said earlier, on-the-job training. We use this whole year for him to gain experience. And then the year after that, we've got to be looking at it as like, all right, this is do or die, my man. We need at least 10 to 12 wins on this, get into the playoffs, make something happen. And the year after that, we got to be hoping to win the whole thing. Like, that's the kind of projection that I'm looking for as far as this Ja'Curry Brown thing, if he does end up being the starter. So I'm curious to know what y'all think. Please do leave your comments in the comments section. As you know, I'm really, really involved in that. I answer most of the comments. Initially, when we were getting, 40 or 50 comments, I would respond to every single one of them. But now we're starting to get to the point where there's almost too many for me to respond to. It's getting to like 200 and whatnot comments. So I do appreciate that, and I'm going to make more of an effort to respond to more of them. But my day job and everything, it gets a little tough to stop meetings and whatnot to respond to all those. But I do appreciate the involvement. I really do. But yeah, I'm really curious to know what y'all think about this ranking as far as Will Howard being 6, Malachi Nelson being 5, Jadon Mava being 4, Kaden Salter being 3, Jordan McLoud 2, and then Ja'Curry Brown number 1. Do you think any of those are off? Do you think Ja'Curry Brown makes sense being ranked number 1, or is that nuts? And also, I would like to know if they announce that they are done with the transfer portal and Ja'Curry Brown is the starter for next year. If they just announce that tomorrow, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about our season this upcoming year? Really curious to know that. So like I said before, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate, and I want to thank everybody who has subscribed so far because you've helped the channel tremendously, and I appreciate that. All right, so as I always say to end the videos, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I truly appreciate that. So God bless. Take care. Peace.